The little white bakery box sat on the counter like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The woman standing in front of it wasn't holding it. She was staring at it. The way you stare at something you already know you have to let go of. Outside the window, downtown Charleston moved along like any other Thursday morning. People walked past with paper coffee cups and headphones in, none of them noticing that inside Sweetwater Bakery, a young mother was quietly falling apart. Before we get into today's story, if you believe kindness is still alive in this world and that no child should ever go without a birthday cake, take a second to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that people can still be good. And tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from tonight. Now, let's begin. Nathaniel Reyes hadn't planned on being at Sweetwater Bakery that morning. Normally, his driver picked up coffee for him on the way to the office, but his daughter Charlotte had begged him to stop there herself, because the bakery's cinnamon rolls were, in her words, the only good thing about Thursdays. Nathaniel was 38 years old, and worth more money than most people could imagine. 3 years earlier, Forbes had put his face on a magazine cover under the headline, "The Quiet Billionaire," because, unlike most men in his position, he never gave interviews, never posted photos of his houses, and never let anyone know what he was actually like behind closed doors. What the world didn't know was that behind those doors, Nathaniel was just a tired single father, still learning how to braid his daughter's hair 4 years after his wife Elena had died in a car accident on a rainy October night. Money had never once helped with that kind of grief. It only bought him quiet rooms to grieve in. That morning, while Charlotte sat outside in the car with his assistant, Nathaniel walked in wearing a plain gray jacket. No tie, nothing that would suggest who he was. He liked it that way. In this bakery, he was just a dad getting cinnamon rolls. Sweetwater Bakery smelled like it always did that time of morning: warm butter, fresh bread, and the faint sweetness of vanilla frosting being piped onto something in the back kitchen. A couple of retirees sat by the window sharing a newspaper. A young mother balanced a toddler on one hip while ordering 2 coffees. Soft music played from a small speaker near the register, the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. That's when he saw her. The woman at the counter was maybe 30 years old, dressed in a nurse's scrubs that had clearly been slept in. Her eyes were red, and her hands shook slightly as she opened her wallet, counted the bills inside twice, and then closed it again. The bakery employee, a teenage girl with a kind face, was trying to explain something gently. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I really am. But the cake's already been decorated with her name on it. We can't really resell it, and the store can't refund the deposit." The woman nodded slowly, the way people do when they've already accepted defeat before the sentence even finishes. "That's okay," she said quietly. "I understand. I can't pick it up today. Maybe you can just keep it." She thanked the employee quietly, apologized for taking up her time, and gave a small nod, the kind of nod people give when they're trying to leave a room with whatever dignity they have left. There was no scene, no raised voice, nothing that would have made anyone else in the bakery even look up. Just a woman quietly accepting that today wasn't going to go the way she'd hoped. Nathaniel found himself watching her more closely than he meant to. Something about the way she held her shoulders reminded him of himself 4 years earlier, walking through grocery stores and school hallways, doing the exact same thing, moving forward because there was no other option. Even when every step felt heavier than it should, she reached for the strap of her bag, turned toward the door, and that's when something slipped out of her purse and landed softly on the tile floor. Nathaniel bent down and picked it up before she noticed. It was a birthday invitation, homemade, folded in half. On the front, in careful crayon lettering surrounded by drawn balloons, it read, "Happy 7th birthday, Ava." Inside, a child's drawing showed a small girl with pigtails standing next to a tall pink cake covered in candles. Underneath, in handwriting that clearly took a long time to get right, were the words, "This is going to be the best day of my whole life." Nathaniel's chest tightened in a way it hadn't in a long time. He caught up to her just outside the door. "Ma'am, you dropped this." The woman turned, startled, then flushed with embarrassment when she saw what he was holding. "Oh, thank you," she said, taking it quickly and tucking it back into her bag, like she was hiding something shameful, though there was nothing shameful about it at all. "Happy birthday to your daughter," Nathaniel said simply. He didn't ask questions, He didn't offer sympathy she hadn't asked for. He just said the one kind thing that felt true. The woman gave a small, tired smile. "Thank you," she said again, and walked to an old silver hatchback parked across the street, the kind with a check engine light that had probably been on for months and a dent in the back bumper nobody had gotten around to fixing. She didn't look back. She didn't have the energy to. She just started the engine, waited for it to sputter and catch, and pulled away toward whatever the rest of her day required of her. Nathaniel stood on the sidewalk longer than he meant to. He thought about the drawing. He thought about the words, "The best day of my whole life," written by a child who had no idea her mother couldn't afford to make that happen. He walked back inside. The pink cake was still sitting on the counter. Bright frosting, little sugar flowers. "Happy 7th birthday, Ava," piped across the top in careful cursive. "What was her name?" he asked the young employee. The girl hesitated, unsure if she should say anything, then softened. "Rebecca Hart. She used to come in with her husband all the time, before he passed. Construction accident, I think, a couple years back. She's been raising Ava on her own since. Works nights at the hospital. She told my manager last week she'd been saving for this cake for over a month. Her car broke down yesterday and ate up everything she had left. She had to choose between fixing it and the birthday cake. Because without the car, she can't get to work at all. She used to come in every Friday with him," the girl continued. "They'd split a cinnamon roll and argue about whose turn it was to pay. After he passed, she stopped coming for almost a year. When she finally came back, she was different, quieter. She started picking up night shifts so she could still be home in the mornings to get Ava to school. I don't think she's bought herself anything new in months, but she saved for weeks to get this cake exactly right, because Ava kept talking about it at pickup, the pink frosting, the flowers, all of it." Nathaniel looked at the cake for a long moment. He thought about Charlotte, waiting in the car outside, probably already halfway through a cinnamon roll of her own, completely unaware that a few feet away, someone else's daughter almost went without a single candle to blow out. Then he took out his wallet and paid for it in full, plus the cost of 3 more just like it, in case anyone else needs one this month, he told the confused cashier. But he had one condition. "Don't tell her it was me," he said. "Don't tell her it was anyone. Just say the balance got covered." The cashier blinked. "People don't usually ask to stay anonymous, sir." Nathaniel smiled faintly. "The good ones do." He understood something most people never stop to consider. It's one thing to help somebody. It's another thing to let them keep their pride while you do it. An hour later, the bakery called Rebecca. She was on her lunch break, sitting in her car in the hospital parking lot with a granola bar she hadn't touched, dreading the conversation she'd have to have with Ava after school about why there wouldn't be a cake this year after all. The manager explained gently that there had been a mix-up with her order, and that a community fund the bakery partnered with had already covered the remaining balance. All she needed to do was come pick it up whenever she had a free moment. Rebecca sat there, phone pressed to her ear, completely silent for almost 10 seconds. "Are you sure?" she finally asked. "Are you sure it's not a mistake?" The manager assured her it wasn't. The cake was ready whenever she could come. When Rebecca walked back into Sweetwater Bakery that afternoon, she held the pink box against her chest like it might disappear if she loosened her grip. She didn't cry until she got back to her car. Then she sat behind the wheel and let it out, quietly, the kind of crying that comes not from sadness but from relief. So sudden it doesn't know where else to go. She had no idea a man was watching from across the street, sitting in the back seat of a black SUV, watching through the window with his own daughter asleep against his shoulder, her cheek pressed against his arm and a half-eaten cinnamon roll still wrapped in a napkin on the seat between them. For a moment, Nathaniel almost got out of the car. He almost wanted to tell her it was fine, that someone out there had noticed, that her daughter's birthday wasn't going to be the disappointment she'd braced herself for. But he stayed where he was, because some kindnesses are better left unsigned. Nathaniel believed at that moment that the story was finished. A woman got her daughter's birthday cake. A little girl named Ava would get to blow out 7 candles. He drove home that evening thinking that was the whole story. He was wrong. That night, Charlotte asked her father if they could drop off the leftover items from a school food drive she'd helped organize on their way home from dinner. Nathaniel agreed. mostly because Charlotte rarely asked him for anything that wasn't a toy or a video game. And this felt important to say yes to. At the community center, a volunteer mentioned, almost in passing, a young widow and her daughter who'd been struggling since her husband's accident, someone the center had recently added to their outreach list. The volunteer mentioned the neighborhood. It was the same neighborhood Nathaniel had watched that silver hatchback drive toward earlier that day. Without either of them realizing it, one small act of kindness had already begun quietly pulling two families onto the same road. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a second to like the video and subscribe to Kindness Corner, so more stories like this can find the people who need them. And if you're feeling generous today, drop the word kindness in the comments below. Let's fill this page with it. 2 weeks later, Charlotte's school held its annual charity carnival, a fundraiser where local families paid $5 a ticket for games, face painting, and a raffle, with all proceeds going to a scholarship fund for kids who'd lost a parent. Nathaniel almost skipped it that year. Public events made him uneasy, since people recognized him more often than he liked, and there was always someone hoping for a photo or a donation pitch disguised as small talk. But Charlotte insisted, practically bouncing by the front door that morning, mostly because she'd been asked to run the ring toss booth with a new girl from her class. That new girl was Ava Hart. Nathaniel didn't put it together right away. It was Charlotte who came running over an hour into the carnival, practically glowing. "Dad, Ava's mom works at the hospital. And guess what? Ava's birthday cake was pink with flowers, just like the one you always talk about from that bakery." Nathaniel turned and saw her, Rebecca Hart, standing near the raffle table, laughing at something one of the other mothers said, wearing a yellow sundress instead of hospital scrubs, looking lighter than the woman he'd seen weeks earlier clutching a cake box she couldn't afford. He barely recognized her at first, not because her face had changed, but because the exhaustion in it had. He almost walked the other way. He'd built his whole life around staying invisible in moments like this, ducking out of school events early, letting his assistant handle the parent emails, keeping enough distance that nobody asked questions he didn't want to answer. But something about watching his daughter and Ava laughing together over a ring toss, tossing plastic rings at soda bottles and missing every single one, made him stay exactly where he was. He introduced himself simply as Nate, Charlotte's dad. Rebecca shook his hand, thanked him for letting Charlotte and Ava become such fast friends, and said nothing about the bakery, because she had no reason to think he had anything to do with it. They talked for 20 minutes, about nothing important: school pickup lines, the impossible math homework, how fast 7-year-olds seemed to grow overnight. Nathaniel found himself laughing for the first time in longer than he could remember, not performing it for cameras or shareholders, just laughing because something was funny. Rebecca mentioned, almost as an aside, that she'd finally caught a break that month. Someone had quietly covered her daughter's birthday cake when she couldn't afford it, and it had come at exactly the moment she needed to believe good people still existed. "It sounds strange," she admitted, "but it gave me the push to ask my manager about a promotion I'd been too scared to bring up. Got it last week. Day shifts now. Better pay. Ava and I finally get real evenings together." Nathaniel said nothing about the cake. He just told her he was glad things were looking up, and meant it more than she could have known. Over the following months, Charlotte and Ava's friendship grew the way children's friendships do, without effort, without agenda, simply because two kids liked each other and saw no reason to complicate it. Nathaniel and Rebecca's friendship grew slower, built out of school pickups, carnival committees, and the kind of small conversations that build trust one Tuesday at a time. Rebecca never learned the truth about the cake for almost a year. It came out by accident, when the same bakery employee who'd rung it up recognized Nathaniel at a school fundraiser and mentioned it in passing, assuming everyone already knew. Rebecca confronted him gently, more moved than upset. "Why would you keep something like that a secret?" Nathaniel thought about it for a moment before answering. "Because needing help is hard enough without an audience," he said. "I didn't want you thanking a stranger. I wanted you to just get to have a good day with your daughter." Rebecca didn't have a response for that, not right away. She just looked at him the way you look at someone who has quietly, without asking for anything back, made your life a little lighter. Then she laughed, wiping at her eyes, and told him that for a billionaire, he was remarkably bad at accepting a thank you. "I've had a lot of practice avoiding them," he admitted. Neither of them set out to build anything more than a friendship between their daughters. But sometimes the smallest kindness, a cake, an invitation returned, a name kept quiet becomes the first page of a much longer story neither person saw coming. Today, Ava and Charlotte are inseparable, and their families spend holidays together more often than not. Nathaniel still stops by Sweetwater Bakery most Thursdays. And every year, right around Ava's birthday, a community fund quietly covers the cost of one struggling family's cake. No name attached, no thanks expected. Because somewhere along the way, Nathaniel learned that his late wife had been right about something she used to say all the time. Kindness should never wait for the right moment. It should just show up quietly, whenever it's needed. If this story moved you tonight, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. And before you go, tell us, have you ever received help from someone who never wanted the credit? We'd love to hear that story in the comments below.